I didn't leave my husband because I stopped loving him. That would have been easier to explain, easier to confess, easier to survive. I left because one night I realized I was invisible in my own marriage, and the silence between us had grown louder than any argument we ever had. The house was quiet, the dishes were done, the television humming in the background, and he was laughing at messages on his phone with a softness I hadn't heard directed at me in years. That was the moment something inside me finally broke. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had noticed her name before, of course. It appeared often enough that even a distracted wife would have memorized it. Late notifications. Sudden smiles. The way he angled the screen away without thinking. When I asked who she was, he said she was just a colleague, someone who understood his workload. He said it casually, like the answer itself should have embarrassed me for asking. I wanted to believe him. Belief is comfortable. It lets you sleep beside a stranger and pretend you still know his heart. I chose comfort over confrontation again and again, until comfort disappeared entirely. The truth did not explode into our lives. It slipped in quietly, polite and patient. One evening he fell asleep on the couch, his phone resting against his chest, still unlocked. I told myself I would not look. I had promised I was not that kind of woman. But promises feel noble only when they cost nothing. I picked it up. The messages were not graphic, not explicit, not even technically unforgivable. They were worse. They were intimate. Inside jokes. Private complaints about me. Compliments he hadn't given me in years. He told her she understood him better than I. I read every word slowly as if speed might soften the impact. He described me as distant, difficult, too serious. He told her he missed feeling admired. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Admired. I had built a life with him, carried half the weight of it, defended him to my family, forgiven his temper, and he wanted admiration from someone who only knew the edited version of him. Something cold settled in my chest. It was not jealousy. It was clarity. I finally saw our marriage without excuses, and it looked nothing like love. Anymore either. I did not wake him that night. I did not scream or cry or demand explanations. I placed the phone back where it had been and watched him sleep. He looked peaceful, untroubled, almost boyish. I wondered if he would look the same when he realized I was gone. The next morning I made coffee, packed his lunch, and kissed his cheek before he left for work. He smiled at me the way you smile at furniture you've owned for years. Familiar. Useful. Replaceable. That was the moment I decided to leave. Not loudly, not angrily, just permanently. For good. Leaving did not mean running into another man's arms. It meant choosing dignity over competition. I refused to fight for attention that should have been freely given. I found an apartment across town, small but filled with light. I signed the lease alone. The pen felt heavier than it should have, as if it understood the weight of final decisions. I did not tell him immediately. I needed time to separate my fear from my resolve. Fear said stay. Resolve said go. I listened to both, but only one sounded like self-respect. And I was done negotiating with myself. When I finally told him, he laughed at first. He thought it was a threat, a dramatic gesture designed to scare him back into devotion. When he saw the boxes by the door, the folder of printed messages on the table, the keys I had placed beside his coffee mug, the laughter faded. He asked if there was someone else. I said yes, but not the way he expected. There was someone else. There was me. The version of me who refused to beg for scraps of affection. He did not understand that answer. He only understood loss too late. I left my husband with someone else, but not in the way people assume. I left him with the woman who made him feel admired through a screen, and I left myself with something stronger than admiration. He called for weeks, alternating between anger and apology. I did not block him. I did not argue. I simply repeated the same sentence. I deserve a love that does not need an audience. Eventually the call stopped. The silence returned, but this time it belonged to me. And for the first time it did not hurt. It felt like freedom. Finally.